Good evening and welcome to the October 15th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. We started at 6:15 with non-public to discuss a tax arrangement with a resident. And we are now at Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for something for your leg to say your leg.
Okay.
Just stretch it out.
Public comment.
Thank you, Frank Campana. I'll try to make it as easy as I can for the minute taker and for you folks to understand. A couple of things. You're still scheduled to set the tax rate tonight.
That's correct.
So it will be interesting to see what you return to reduce taxes, and if you intend to keep the taxpayer first on the priority list. I went back to some minutes back in December of last year. I kept my own notes. It was towards the end of the year, the fiscal year for you folks, and you spent some money from budget surplus. You had a budget surplus up to that time. You spent some money out of that to buy a few things. I called and checked with finance administrator today. I knew my number would be high, would be wrong and high, because still had the rest of the year to go into January. So I was told that there's roughly $102,000 of budget surplus from last year. And I added into that the $54,000 that check that got from the fire department for the truck. And I took the liberty of adding into that another $47,000, which you will probably, as of the last year and a couple of years past, which you will probably put towards an article for a police car. So you got roughly a couple $100,000, and I figure that that's a starting point to use to reduce taxes. If you exclude the 47, just rate it, put an article and raise the dollar amount. Don't do the not accusingly, but the smoke and mirrors of saying, well, we're going to use this money to offset the article, and it's not going to cost you anything. So there's that I will be looking for, and the other thing, very quickly, as I was looking for some minutes about a week ago, I noticed on the, I guess the home page, I guess is what you call it for the town website, that there was there were two public hearings listed. One was transfer stations fees, and what really floored me was coincidentally tonight at the fire station, the Board of Fire Wards are meeting. And what are they discussing? They're discussing increase in ambulance fees. I guess they can discuss that there. Of course, there are provisions for people, to go to see, but I would think something like that. Maybe they're just discussing it, and we'll bring it to the Board of Selectmen. It's a pretty select group of people down there, and they like to be, on their own and, do things the way they want to do it. But something like that can possibly affect, certainly anybody in the town. And it should be someplace, it should be held someplace here, up there, and certainly the opportunity for the selectmen to ask questions. What's the justification? I remember the last time, which I think was the last time they were raised, the fees were raised, was a good several years back, and I'm pretty sure it was Chief Benzina that was in here. He was before the board and discussing the raising of the fees, the whys and wherefores, I guess. And it was at that time that I learned, just to confirm, It was that time that I learned that one of the selectmen asked, well, how do you come upon the fees? How do you arrive at them? And he said, well, it has something connected with Medicare, if I understood it right. So I'm getting that. So I do remember the last time it was done, but it was done in this venue at that time. And I think it's very egregious that it's not done in this menu, where it affects everybody. So those couple of things are done. Well, actually, I'll backtrack still on that. That money, that $54,000, when you discuss the tax rate, I would like to remind you folks that there was a vote taken at the board on June 18th, and the majority of the board, with one abstention, so the majority of the board authorized that money to go in the general fund, all right? And 3 of the selectmen, I have the minutes here of June 18th. 3 of the selectmen at that time specifically directed it to reduce taxes, as the language is in here. I don't need to mention the names, but I have them highlighted if you want memory refreshed. One of them wanted the car. So let's keep that in mind with that $54,000. And now tied into that is the fact that the fire chief seems to still want to get that money. And I'll tell you why. I have the capital improvements requests from, this is September, I don't remember the date, but it's September of 2017 for 2019, the current request. All right, at that time, the fire chief put on here a request for car 1, apparatus car 1. And if you've ever seen these, I don't know if you look at these application sheets, but there's one section that says source of funding, and it gives a list of, options: grants, loans, donations, user fees, capital reserve funds, impact fees. And you probably, well, I don't know, being on the fire wards, maybe you don't look at these either. I don't know when you were, excuse me, when you were there. Special assessment warrant articles. There's a list of, 6 or 8 or 9 of them. And at that time, he had listed the car as being funded by capital reserve fund. All right. Well, there's not a specific line on here for special revenue fund. So I'm tying, making that connection: capital reserve fund, special revenue fund. So he had it fully funded, $50,000. This year, 2000. This is what his last handout was to. I don't know if it was you folks or if I got it from the CIP. I don't remember. But this year, for the car, he has the same thing, apparatus 1. There's a section here for funding source, and lo and behold, he has $48,000. But how does he list the funding? $8,000, a little over. I'll use round numbers. $8,000 coming from the capital reserve fund, which is a special revenue fund, if you will allow me that connection. All right. And $40,000 coming from current revenue, in parenthesis, general fund. Well, what's in the general fund? $54,000. So he's after that money. He's after that money, folks. When the car 2 years ago, at least the paperwork, 2 years ago, he had it listed as coming specifically from the special revenue fund. What's changed? $54,000 check, insurance check. He wants that money. I have the suspect that somebody is on the, or a couple of people, a few people, on the sidelines, give him a little nudge. Hey, you still got that money in there, and you can convince if you can convince the selectmen to use that $54,000 instead of giving it back to reduce taxes, we can use it to buy the car, and now we'll have that money. All All right, how much money does this department need? They're down there tonight discussing increase in ambulance fees. You know, well, you know, with the exception of you, probably the exception of you, maybe Naomi and maybe Jack. You may have, caught wind of what the expenses are, tied to an increase in fees. Everything is budgeted down there. Where do the fees go to? It goes to buy things. And it will go to buy things that are wanted, not needed. All right? Now, I can't list anything, but I've said before, there's a boatload of money down there. He wants $54,000 insurance check. They're down there talking about increased ambulance fees. It's out of control, folks. So I'd like you to consider that when you get the CIP. I was going to wait till you got the full CIP report, presented to you. But, you're doing the tax rate setting, so that's where that money should go, to reduce my tax rate. Because they've got money down there to buy things, and more in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Don Osborne, has anybody looked into that 54,000, what fund that came out of? Did it come out of that fund that the fire department has?
Initially,
For the yeah. I know it's been a while, but
75% of it did.
Yeah.
come out of,
The warrant article, March 8th of 2005,
yeah,
Article 27.
yeah,
We raised in $100,000 for the used ladder truck, with $75,000 coming from the special revenue fund, $25,000 coming from the surplus, the general fund. So if you take the 54,000 times 75%, it comes up to $40,500. So he's asking for the 75% of.
so it automatically come out of that line anyway, or that,
It came. 75% of it came out of the special revenue fund to purchase the. Yes.
Any other public comment?
This ambulance fee thing and the money from the sale of the truck wasn't originally on my list for tonight, but I would like to get my 2 cents in on that. In fact, when the board decided to have that money go into the general fund, you only had several choices, because I don't think there was a legal way you could put it back in the special revenue fund. That money only comes from the ambulance billing fees. Ideally, that would have been a good thing to do, because then it would have maintained the value of the fleet as a whole. By putting it in the general fund, in a sense, what we did was we moved part of the value of the fire department fleet into the general fund. So I would personally see no problem with discussing the possibility of paying for a vehicle out of the general fund when the time comes to make that decision, because you would just be returning the value of the fleet, which was taken away when it was handled the way that it was. Not saying there's anything wrong done with the way it was a choice of the board, but it did take that value out of the fleet, and especially in light of what was just said, that the money for that originally came out of the special revenue fund, so it was ambulance billing fees that paid for it, at least 3/4 of it to begin with. So anyways, that tax rate was the first thing on my list, and I would just encourage you to take a middle road on that. Because sometimes if it looks like there's a bundle sitting there and you can give it back to reduce the tax rate, it will make everybody happy. But you don't want to overdo it, and instead of keeping a moderate or a flat tax rate, actually lower it, because you're going to end up the next year, probably with a double-digit increase, and nobody's going to look back and say, gee, look what they did for us last year, though. They're only going to see the increase in a given year. So what we've done over the years, as those of you who are on the board know, is try to take that middle road and give something back, but not overdo it in the sense of breaking the bank and then the following year not be able to moderate the tax rate by having funds on hand to do that with. The other thing, the gazebo was on the agenda a couple weeks ago, and if you recall, I came in a month or so ago to speak to that same issue. And I agree with what was said as far as the engineer's report, as far as it being a pretty solid structure, and that's why I would be opposed to taking it down and starting over. Also, there's a uniqueness to it that I don't think you'd be able to duplicate. But I do think that something has to be done, particularly on that one column that's so rotted out, whether it's a temporary support or something, because I think that knowing that that is rotted the way that it is, and not doing anything, you really are maintaining a hazard which opens up a liability issue. So even if it was a matter of putting a 4x4 in there that didn't look too good but would assure people that it was safe, because you are going to have kids in there no matter how much you say, well, we don't want kids in there, but it's reality. It's an attraction to kids to get up in there and play. And so you want it to be safe, especially with a snow load coming in the next few months. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Tom?
Is your name Tom?
Further notice.
Thanks, guys.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, Richard Butt. Regarding some comments that were just made in terms of maintaining the fleet, the $50,000 approximately, it would be an acceptable argument if we were maintaining that fleet, if we were actually replacing the ladder truck. But what's being done is we're adding to the fleet. The request by the fire department to add for a car and retain the vehicle that he's currently using, that's an addition to the fleet. So I don't think that argument in terms of using that money to maintain the fleet holds water. I think that money should come back to the taxpayers, and I hope you stand by a decision that was made a month or two ago to do exactly that. I just have a couple quick things. Want to make sure the board's aware of changes to an RSA that requires you to discuss. I'll just read it. Requires the board to explain, discuss, and debate each warrant article. This is at the deliberative session, the first session, including warrant articles pertaining to the operating budget and default budget. It hasn't been done previously. So according to the changes to the RSA, which were specific to the default budget, you are required to present information and allow people to discuss it. In addition to that, there was a change, or in addition to that RSA, which is RSA 40:13. RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 9, defines a contract. And that was an issue, and you certainly should be aware of that issue, with contracts that were made without voter approval. A judge ruled in favor of a person that said it shouldn't be in there, and the judge agreed. But you manipulated the default budget to put that money back in. The contract, the definition of the word contract, now means previously approved by the legislative body in the operating budget or as a separate warrant article. So any contracts that were in the operating budget that were approved are valid contracts, can be continued, or if it's a separate article in the warrant. I think the board has to make a decision this year. Are you going to put those contracts as separate articles in the warrant, or are you going to put them into the operating budget? And if that operating budget doesn't get approved, what are you going to do with the default budget? So, I mean, those things are going to be brought to light during this first session of the vote. At the deliberative session, you will have to make known what the default budget is and what's in the default budget. So I hope the board spends some time discussing how you're going to approach those 3 contracts, I believe. There's one for Avatar, one for the police chief, and one for the town administrator. As far as the fire department goes in this special revenue fund, these are numbers that were given to me by the finance administrator. The beginning balance in that fund was $100,394. The revenue through September was $133,544, for a total of $226,649. If you figure the last quarter is going to be $44,000, which is the first 3 quarters divided by 3, it brings the total amount in that fund, without any expenditures, $280,000. Now, the ambulance, last year of an ambulance lease is in that fund. Not a lease. Yeah, was it a lease?
Lease purchase. I believe the lease purchase.
I think lease purchase, yeah. And about $2,000 for the last quarter for billing. The total billing for the first 3 quarters was about $4,400. I don't have that number. I didn't include it. About $6,000, I guess, a little over $6,000 for billing for the first 3 quarters. So I'm figuring about $2,000 for the last quarter. The total about $8,000 for billing, anyway. So there's going to be, even with that out, even with about $77,000 removed, approximately $75,000 for the ambulance and $2,000 for the balance of the billing for this last quarter, there's going to be approximately over $200,000. I'm guesstimating at the amount of revenue we'll get for the last quarter. And the reason why I mention these numbers is that that's a sizable number in addition to whatever increase is being considered tonight over at the fire department. And I feel the same way as the prior speaker, that it should be here. It should be a public hearing here for discussion. The board should be aware of it. But I wish the board would consider that ambulance revenue as for town use, not just for use by the fire department. You know, the town provides the resources and the money to fund that fire department. They do their job and they do it well. The revenue that they get from ambulance billing is a result of them doing their job, but nothing extraordinary than doing your job. That money, I think, should be used by the town as part of a capital improvements fund. If you look at the amount of money they'd be taking in annually and consider what their requests are for the next 5 to 7 years, there's some money available there. Money available to buy a police cruiser, money for other things. I'm not talking about funding a $200,000 item in addition to what the fire department already requests. But I wish the board would get into discussions with it. I'm not saying it would work, but at least discuss that with the fire department. I think the fire department feels it's their money. It's not their money. We fund that fire department. That money should be town money. And it's a sizable amount of money. And I would hope that the board would at least discuss the opportunities that may be available to us to use that as a capital improvement fund, and also consider other revenues that the town generates going into that fund, as long as it doesn't reduce the amount of money going to offset taxes. So the revenue coming in for the ambulances obviously is not raised by taxes. It's individuals, whether they live here or not. So I think there's an opportunity to at least look at it, see if there's a benefit to the town beyond just the fire department, for that money to be used to offset purchases in the future. I just ask that you discuss it. Thanks.
Any other public comment?
I'm not sure, my husband is at another meeting,
Okay.
and I'm not sure whether this can wait until you bring it up, dealing with the gazebo, later in the meeting and allow him to speak, or whether I need to
I don't know.
speak to it now.
We don't have it on the agenda, but I think we discussed it
Would
after
your
your
minutes
report,
say you're
right?
gonna,
Yeah, we'll
you're gonna
discuss
it. It'll
decide
be-
on that,
you'll-
you're gonna decide on
Will you allow him to
tax
speak later
properties.
when you bring it up?
Board's consensus? Sure. Yes.
Okay. Just so you know, I just came from the fire department to their public hearing, and I think that they will explain why they need that increase, or that why they want that increase. It was a little bit confusing. But my bigger concern is that so few people even knew there was a public hearing for that. And that was a little, that's not good for the town.
Any other public comment? There being none, we'll move on. Department head committee items. We recognize Mike Sullivan. Right on time.
I was gonna say, we have a coat roll in the library. You're not supposed to make anyone do any work till they get the coat off.
Doesn't apply here.
Doesn't apply here.
No.
Sorry, I was late there. We had a program at the library. I sent an email last week. I hope it got through to people. Little bit of a repair issue at the library. We've been working the last 6 months to try and get together a plan and some quotes to replace that carpet. It has been molding apparently since a flood. I don't remember how many years ago, before my time. And so we're putting this forward hopefully for the board to approve using the building repair fund. And someone's going to have to help me because I haven't got my papers in order yet. What the total was? You have it in front of you?
599816.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And you'll notice on the bid that the trustees selected, the total is bigger than that, but includes some cabinets. Figure if we're going to, fix the floor while we're doing that, that's the time to finish it up and put some cabinets and get some of the storage out of underneath tables and in doorways, which has been a little bit of an issue. So that's why the number we're requesting is less than the number on the bid. We'll find other funding for the cabinets.
Did you get 3 bids?
Yep. I sent all
yeah.
all 3 along. Yep.
Yeah.
Final.
Yep. It was the Kevin Proventure
Yeah.
bid that would like to go with.
Okay, so the actual total with the cabinets and everything was 93,803.
Yep.
Okay. This is in the downstairs?
Yeah, this is in the what's referred to as the Emma Sawyer room. It's where we have a lot of the younger children's programs in the library, so like Story Hour and Playgroup, and it's also the open meeting room where usually 8 to 10 community meetings a month happen, because that's where there's a separate entrance.
Board have any questions? No? Entertain a motion?
I'd make a motion Kevin Provencher is awarded the bid for $9,380.03.
5,990.
No, 9,380.
Oh,
No, he's only asking
he's
for
only
four.
asking,
He's not asking.
Yeah, the total bid is for 93,
Three.
but the only part that's a repair as
Is the
opposed to
carpet.
new is the
Is the
carpeting.
carpet.
Okay, so that would be the 5267.
59.
No, it's
59.98,
16.
16.
Because you've got all the debris away, you gotta
Okay.
prepare the floor and you gotta put it down.
So what is it, Naomi?
59.
59, 16.
16.
Okay.
So we make a motion that Kevin Provencher redo the floors downstairs in the Emma Sawyer room for a total of $5,998.16
Second.
To come from,
to come from the Building and Maintenance Fund.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Do you have a form for us
What?
tonight?
No,
Okay.
I'll have to get the form.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Up next, we have the tax rate setting.
Everyone have their copy? Okay, we're looking at our 2018 tax rate. The first page just shows you where we are with our preliminary tax rate. So the operating budget was voted in at $5,997,260. The departments did an amazing job this year, and they raised over $3,301 in revenue to offset that. The warrant articles was another $1,229,206, with some revenues offsetting those of $463,320. The taxpayers did vote for $44,571 to come from fund balance for the cruiser. We have to add in our overlay, which is our abatements, money that we are not going to be receiving. And then we have to add in our war service credits, and this year that was $193,500. So the tax for the town effort is going to be $3,631,232. The school portion, the local school is $13,715,884. The regional is going to be $8,632,148. There is a education grant revenue of $7,145,493, and then they have the retained state education tax. They can consider it as a revenue of $1,777,106. As you can see down below, the state education portion is that $1,777,106 that the school considers revenue. And then the county portion this year is going to be $1,026,162. So with our preliminary tax rate, we're at $23.03. If you look on the next page, I broke it down so you could see where every penny of your tax rate comes from. For the town portion only, the operating budget was $3.11. The warrant articles that all the voters voted yes on came to 83 cents. The war service credits, which is $193,500, adds 22 cents to our tax rate. And then the overlay, again, for those abatements that we are not expecting to receive, is 2 cents. So the town tax rate, the preliminary town tax rate, is going to be $4.19. If you flip it over, you can see where we stand. So our 2017 tax rate was $23.05. This year, it's $23.03. So it's 2 cents less than it was last year, and that's not putting any money from fund balance to it. Our available fund balance is $1,213,845. If we keep all that, we have a 5.18% retainage. If you put $40,000 towards the tax rate, we keep 5% retainage,
Which is the minimum.
which is the minimum according to DRA. As stated earlier, the June 18th meeting minutes where the town had a public hearing to accept the $53,000, that's in your revenue. You guys accepted that as revenue in June. So that goes to that $3 million to offset the tax rate. It's already in there. You accepted it as revenue in June, it's in there. Just so you know, our total year expenditures is $23,455,000. The tax collector collects about $19 million of that. The departments here collect about $3.5 million. That's if we collect every penny. So just take that into consideration. We have to collect every penny.
Now, how are the revenues compared to last year?
They're raised a little higher. Not much, though. The building permits, land use has done a fantastic job this year. Motor vehicles has gone up at least $100,000, I want to say, than last year.
Wow.
They've risen. We need to look at our fees, because I don't know when the last time you guys revised the fees for building permits and copies and, you know,
Mechanical permits.
everything. But over half of our operating expenditures were collected through revenues.
That's last year. But you also had more money out here.
Now, wasn't there a, was there a change in fund balance when we went to the new auditors? Is that what,
Oh, yeah,
is that
because of the...
reflected in some of this too?
Yep.
Okay. And that was for?
The acceptance of Gatsby 75
Okay.
that we talked about
Okay,
today.
the one you, okay.
Yep.
All right. So in reality, we didn't have as much fund balance as we thought we
Well,
had.
we added a liability because
Right,
of the New
right.
Hampshire retirement system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only problem with the low fund balance is it's not cash in hand. Like I said before, we have $23 million worth of expenses. At least $700,000 a month is going to the schools, so we have to have that money in our account. I've already talked to the tax collector, the treasurer, I'm sorry. We're looking at a TAN next year because our cash flow is just so low. So she's going to start the paperwork come January. That'll give us the whole 12 months to get a TAN if we need one, because the tax bills won't go out until July. That's 6 months that we have to carry all these expenditures. Hopefully not, but it's, you know, she's going to be ready.
Yeah.
If we need
No,
to
we
borrow.
gotta be ready.
Yeah. So it's up to the board. Right now, we're looking at 2 cents less than last year with no action. You can use $40,000 from fund balance to bring it down to $22.99, which will be 6 cents less than last year.
Board have any questions? Comments?
Do we know what's the total amount that's non-collected taxes? We used to have around-
Well, we only count current year for non-collected because that would be liability. Right now, I think we're only looking at 400.
1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
It's been a great year for collecting taxes.
Mhm.
I mean, it really has. We only have 15, 16, 17, and 18 on the books. Next year, also, the state has passed. So right now, once the due date comes for taxes, we charge 12% after the due date on taxes. And then you have a year. And then the tax collector goes to lien in April. And after your property goes to lien, you pay 18% interest on your taxes. Well, the state has changed the interest rate. So next year it's going to be 6% for late taxes, and then it's going to be 12%. So I don't know if people get their tax bill and their credit card bill and look at which interest rate's higher, which one they're going to pay first. Before, we had a high interest rate, 18%. We got paid first.
I thought it was 8 and 14.
I thought it was 8 too.
I thought it was
It's
6 and 12.
14.
All right, I'll look
I'm
at
pretty
that.
sure it's 8.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
know
thought it
that
was
the
6 and
first
12.
half.
It's less.
It's less anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we'll still keep collecting our taxes.
Right. And interest and penalties will probably be coming down because we've cleared up a lot of the old
Mhm.
taxes.
Plus the interest rate is reducing.
Yeah, so we won't be having as much collection in that.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask for clarification?
Yes.
Did you say that the money that we've been talking about earlier about the sale of the ladder truck has already gone in and put as a revenue? So
It's in the
already
general
this
fund.
list as an offsetting
Yep.
balance of the tax rate?
When they had their public hearing accepted as revenue, it's now in that
So
$3,300,000.
it's a non-issue as far
Correct.
as...
It's in the revenue. It's offsetting the expenditures.
Thank you. All right. Any suggestions on where we should go, Board? I'll entertain a motion.
I guess I'll get it started.
Get started.
I'll get it started. If
There
anybody
you go.
wants.
We can discuss from there.
I move that we work with column A, which is what, I mean, because that doesn't leave us very much money for its bottom line as far as what we should be leaving in the fund balance. So I move that we go with A.
Is there
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay.
3-2, it carries.
Do you have something for them to sign?
Yeah, there's no more signature page on the tax rate, but I printed them all out. If I could just have a signature for my own record, that would normally be in the meeting minutes, but if you just sign it
Anywhere on this?
anywhere, it's just my own records that I have the authority to enter that into the portal.
No, it's not.
$1,000 last year.
This is what would have been said.
Yeah, that's right.
If you did nothing, you
Would you have gone with B?
That's right.
because you have to all your money out here.
Yep.
Because it's-
Oh, yeah, I'm saying, we don't have, plus we don't have any wiggle room with the revenue. No, you don't have any money.
If you hire improvement, you're going to.
Is that where you were going to? Which one were you going to be going? B. Okay.
I'll sign it.
No,
Is that way?
I thought I saw Sherry's name and
Oh,
I thought they already signed it down
it was that way, that way, that way.
there.
And then
So that leaves us with 5.18% retainage. And the tax rate would be 2303.
Well, it's estimated.
Estimated.
Estimated. All these numbers are estimated.
Because you have to punch it in, give it to them, and then they.
Right, then they
finalize it.
formulate it, finalize it.
What are they doing?
Any other questions for Beth?
hopefully next year we'll
Yeah, hopefully next year we'll do
do better.
that. Would you like the suitcase?
So I think she's staying for the next presentation.
I won't be able to see you guys again.
Yes, I signatures, I double checked it.
Everything has 3?
I'll try not to.
Beth will-
Oh,
Beth
go
will
right ahead,
double
that's
check.
fine.
I
Yeah,
usually wait till I get upstairs.
yeah, and throw things at him, that's fine.
What's next?
The budget.
Okay. Up next, we have the 2019 Police Department budget presentation, recognized Chief Sean Kelly.
I was coming up with
Chief, take a breather.
No, it's it.
Settle that down.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Beth.
How would you like to proceed?
Line by line.
How did I guess? Okay. So going right from the top, we'll just go right through it. Line 112, that's contractual changes only. And frankly, I don't think that there are any changes. 113, line 113, that's increased to $636,198, and that increase is due to a voter-approved collective bargaining agreement. While we're on this line, I'm going to take an opportunity to make a recommendation to the board for 2 new police officer positions. The first being for patrol shifts, so that we can start looking at a 24-hour-a-day service for a community of our size. And then the other for a new police officer as school resource officer. In the first instance, for the patrol, for both of them, we would have to fund them entirely. And then with the SRO position, speaking with the superintendent at the school department, SAU, it is her intention to push forward to have the 2 school districts in town take on the 2/3 piece of that for the school districts that would show as revenue here for the town. Want to just keep on plugging through it?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. If you want to talk more about, the patrol officer, either one of those positions, I'll be happy to. But we can, if you don't mind, we'll just go through the whole thing first, and then come back to any questions you might have.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Line 115. It would be a COLA increase consistent with other town non-union employees. 116, line 116, no changes. Lines 118 through 121. Those are changes that would be reflected in due to the collective bargaining agreements, the statutes, and other imposed changes that have to be made because of things that are outside of our control. Line 140 is the overtime line. I'm asking that that be returned to the level of funding that it was 6 years ago in 2012 at $120,000. And that's based on our usage so far this year. Again, that's part of that collective bargaining agreement that was agreed to and voted on, that requires 2 officers on every shift, and that's causing us overtime. So it's getting eaten up at a rate greater than we've done in the past. Now that we are at current 11 officer positions, with 1 still at the police academy, you'll start to see that go down. But until we are fully properly staffed and able to fill all the shifts accordingly, we're still going to have an overtime burden. Line 150, I don't make a recommendation for any changes there. That's for part-time officers. Line 320, evidence collection, no changes there. Line 324, the police prosecutor, no changes there. Line 341, telephone, no changes there. So when I say no changes, what I mean is no difference up or down from what our current operating budget is. Okay. Line 345, dispatching services increased to $45,600. Let me find that on here for a moment, please. 345. Yeah, that's a fairly substantial increase over the past. It's a $13,000 plus increase, and that's our service provider, the Goffstown Police Department, has done a new calculation on their formula for determining how they bill out, and they're now using, rather than that wonderful introductory rate, it's involves population calls for service, offense numbers, arrest numbers, and incident numbers to determine an equitable fee across services. That's what they're telling us. Okay,
Chief,
so
do you think at this point in time, would you think that would be something we'd put back out to bid, or are we bound by contract for another year or two?
we have another year? It's not?
It's up,
When's it up?
December 31st.
Okay. The problem is, we went from Bow to Goffstown. Yes, there was a money interest in that move, but the geography interest in that move also. The simple move of going from over the hill to down the valley improved our emergency radio communications a lot. I'm fearful that if we go to a service outside of this immediate area, that we would again have diminished radio service, and we're at a point now where we should be making strides towards improving the service, not diminishing it. So I don't recommend going outside anywhere, unless there's a substantial investment made in communications infrastructure, which would also have to include the purchase of land, the construction of radio towers. You're talking about a substantial investment in radio infrastructure. I don't recommend making a move away from Goffstown Police at this time. Line 390, that's the recruitment. I don't recommend any changes there. Line 393, law enforcement accreditation. I don't make any changes there. Line 430. This is an interesting, it's for building maintenance. So I've asked you to increase it to $10,000, but that's somewhat dependent on you. There's been some discussion about moving all of building maintenance and those common things like electricity and generators and so forth to the Board of Selectmen's budget. However you want to handle it, that's fine with me. But I'm asking an increase for $10,000 to $10,000.
As of right now, you use that line for
things like, well, I'm waiting to do carpets in the front lobby. When we have, well, you guys funded the back door, but if a toilet breaks, or if those types of things, that's what we use those monies for. In this instance, the increase is for two projects in particular. One of the things I want to try and do is avoid those doors getting rotted out and having to replace the whole things again. So I want to gutter those, and we discovered, fortunately not the hard way, but we've it's one of those things, you do it all the time, you don't really think about it. And it occurred to us that if somebody that was not familiar with our building, if there was ever a fire emergency and they fled out towards the back of the building, as soon as they got into booking, they'd be trapped. There's no exit from the booking room. So we need to do something about enhancing the locking system there, so that if somebody does get into that section of the building, they can escape a fire. Line 522, which is life insurance, just change, whatever changes are consistent with what's going on with the town's budgeting on that. Line 530, training, I'm asking that to be changed to $15,900. Line 550, printing, no changes.
What, Chief, back to 530, why are we increasing it? Well,
Okay.
I see there's some notes, but I don't know if those mean.
Yeah, okay. So there's been a couple of things that have happened, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past. The funding for the New Hampshire Police Standards and Training Academy has changed. Whereas before, it was entirely funded through a fee that was tacked onto every single ticket or arrest, fines collected by the state for an arrest. It is now out of the state regular budget. As a result of that, the training that they offer has been substantially reduced. The basic training police academy has remained unchanged. It is fully funded for our officers when we send them. However, classes that are a little bit more advanced beyond that first year, second year officer are generally vendor based. And in this instance, what we're looking at is I'm leaving the department at the end of 2019, and as you know, we have been working on succession planning for that purpose, and so I want to be able to send whomever my replacement is. I want to have them have a qualified leadership staff, and that's all vendor-based training. Any more, Mr. Chairman? Okay. Line 550, no changes. That's printing. 560, which is dues, no changes. 580, mileage reimbursement. Excuse me, no changes. 595, that's trash removal, no changes. 596, cleaning services, no changes. Line 610, supplies, no changes. Line 615, body-worn cameras, change, reducing it to $5,454. And what that will do is that will purchase 2 body-worn cameras for part-time officers that we're going to make every effort to fill this year, and then begin it with the idea that starting in 2020, we're going to be getting into a cycle of maintenance replacement. Line 616, computer equipment increased to $2,800. That's the start a replacement of our technologies. We currently have 12 desktops and a laptop. Excuse me. 5 of the computers were replaced in 2016 and 2017. Some of the computers that were bought at the same time as the ones that were replaced due to catastrophic failure remain in service. So we're anticipating that those computers are going to be toast and that we need to start replacing them. And that's all done through the board's approved vendor. And then the other thing, it doesn't affect 2019, but it's going to affect 2020, is that we need to start thinking about, and I know this is going to be a pill going down sideways and dry, but we're going to start thinking about replacing the computers that are in the cruisers. They were already at the edge of being technologically old when they got installed after all that time, and they're going to be ready. They're going to be ready for a replacement. Okay, line 618, office equipment and furniture increased to $2,768. We have an immediate need for additional file space. Our archive records is, we'll probably make it to the end of this calendar year, but we're not going to make it past. we're out of space. And these are the types of records that by statute we have to retain. It's not like we can just, sort through them and say, well, we can get rid of some of this. No, we're at that point where we're done. We're done with space. Excuse me. Line 620, office supplies, decrease that down to $4,000. 622, which is the IMC maintenance. IMC is our records management, the system for the computers, police records management system. No changes to that. Our photocopier service increased to $44.95. No changes to postage, line 625. Line 635, which is fuel. We still don't have enough.
No, we haven't, we have to decide that here.
Okay, so I'll just I'll pass over that
I'm
one.
watching.
Yep. Line 660, fleet maintenance. I'm recommending that we stay at the $20,000 mark for another year. This will allow us to see what's going on with, very frankly, with whether or not we're going to be able to replace over the next couple of years, the 3 cars that remain that are 2008s with 150,000+ miles on them. If we're able to replace those over time, we'll be able to start thinking about reducing that maintenance line. But right now, I would leave it at 20,000. Line 670, police books, no changes. 685, communication equipment. I recommend increasing that to $12,835. That's your approved vendor contract amount of $3,445 per portable radio. We have a need for 3 of them. Excuse me. Line 686, which is defensive force training and equipment. Recommend increasing that to $11,585. We're going to have 2 tasers that have to be replaced, and 1 that's going to be the first of a rotation, get into a regular rotation of 1 out every year, in addition to some other items. Line 700, juvenile diversion. Decrease that to $1,000. Line 736, uniforms and equipment. Increase that to $12,000. Line 738, ballistic vests, increase that to $3,520. We have the need for 2 for part-time officers and 2 that need to be replaced. They're expiring this year. Line 739 is a fixed amount complying with the CBA. Increase that to $6,000. Line 741, this is a one-time purchase line. I recommend that that be 7503. What?
5731, we changed it today.
Well, look at that.
So it's 2 offers, not 4.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks, Beth. So that would be for principally two things. 2 lockers, as Beth just reminded me, for part-time officers, and then the installation of a radio repeater at the high school by our contracted vendor. The radio repeater, the necessity of the radio repeater, and my understanding from R&R Communications is that it would be beneficial to both police and fire, is that once you cross the threshold from being outside the building to inside the building, we lose all radio and telephone communications. It's gone. So we got to do something about that. This is an oddly numbered line, 2741. Maintenance and dry cleaning. Uniform maintenance and dry cleaning, 7,829. Line 30, 740, safety and medical gear, increased to 4,570. That's reflective of the need for one new AED and replace one AED. We're going through latex gloves and the protective masks like crazy, in particular now with this, with the exposures to the opioids and so forth. You're going to see at the bottom of your list there, this is my second or third attempt to get a cruiser into the operating budget. In this instance, I'm asking for $47,461, which is a car and the cost of the upfit of a car, to be put into the operating budget. The idea would be that what we've seen over the last 3 years is that the preceding 10 years we spent $250,000 on vehicle repairs, and that our costs of repairs, hold on one second, get that for you. Our cost of repairs in 2016, for instance, was $56,769. This year, we're projecting the repairs to be about $12,000, almost $13,000. And that is due to cars that aren't falling apart. If we're able to do that and have all of our major costs be warranty items, the extended warranty items, and we're only having to do the basic maintenance, then it's worthwhile. You want to do animal control, or you want to just stop here and do any questions you have on the police side first?
The board will go back over the police stuff first? Or you want to just continue? Let's continue.
Okay.
Continue, I guess, we get to the
Okay.
end.
So, my first note here is that I continue to, we've advertised now twice. We've gone through 2 advertising cycles for an animal control officer, to fill an animal control officer vacancy. In each instance, we've had 0 applications. It is some of the duties and responsibilities that go along with that is disruptive to the police operation, so I would like to continue to make an effort to identify a qualified animal control officer. I don't recommend that you get rid of that position yet. But I can tell you that what we are seeing in our region is that the average regional rate of pay for animal control officers is $16.54 an hour. So on line 150 in the animal control budget, I'm asking you to increase that to $23,400, which is representative of $15 an hour over a 30-hour week. Now, why 30 hours? That's the whole part-time thing we talked about. And with the changes that we came up with last spring, after this time last year, it would be a largely per diem position, but the potential exposure is up to 30 hours. So to budget it for the 30 hours is prudent. There's no change on 390. Line 530, meetings and seminars, I'm asking for $1,000 there. There are no classes or courses of instruction at the police academy for an unqualified animal control officer, so we would have to send them to a vendor. And frankly, I don't know how much that would cost. I've never had to go to an animal control class. So anyway. Supplies increased to $542. That's just representative of the CPI increase for 2018. No changes to line 636, which is safety and medical gear, and no changes to line 660. However, I've made a note here that the car that is currently assigned as an animal control vehicle is it's on its absolute last legs. We just towed a car 7, that was replaced with the new Dodge Charger up for auction. The reason it got towed up there, aside from the fact that it wasn't registered anymore, is that we use that car for parts to try and resurrect the ACO vehicle. Stuff like gas tanks came out of that. Parts that are difficult to come by that were sitting in the lot, we were able to pull out and resurrect the ACO vehicle. It's on its last legs. So for 2020, you got to start thinking about the possibility of having to replace that in addition to your fleet, your police fleet.
Is that one known as Car 9?
No, it used to be Car 2.
Okay.
Now I just have it as ACO.
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked, we have
yeah.
the invoices for said work you're talking about, and it says Car 9 as the reference. So I just wanted.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that.
It went out of 7 into 9.
Right.
Went down to 7 into
The
9.
gas tank
Yeah.
went into 9.
Okay.
So if 9 is the ACO, we keep that in back.
It's not. So 9 is the other unmarked car. So 7 was used for both of those cars to keep them without having to go out and buy parts. All right. So that's it for the basic presentation.
Okay. Now I've got questions. All over. So we'll start with line 113. Some of this might be more clarification than question.
Mm-hmm.
With that, with your recommendation, I believe that would have to go in front of as a warrant article. Is that something you're doing for 2019 warrant? Is that something you're putting on the 2019 warrant?
That's what I'd like to have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think 113 is current staff.
Right.
Right.
That's current staff.
But that's what I brought up. I brought up the.
You brought up bringing up 2 more. So the 2 more.
That's all the fees to that are separate.
Correct. They'd be additional 2.
Yep.
Right. But the 2 officers would have to go as a warrant article.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Just clarifying that. Line 116. No change.
Hold on. Let me get caught up.
Yep.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Just clarify that again. Did you say that was 2 officers? Because I thought you said 2 officers and a resource officer in that
No.
section.
Inclusive. 2 inclusive of the resource officer.
Okay, thank you.
Part-time clerk.
Correct.
Yep.
Are we actively seeking one or no?
Not right now.
Okay. Because we didn't spend any of that line this year. I'm just wondering if we were going to actively search for next year.
That was the intention.
Okay. Any other board member can chime in at any time.
You're doing a great job, Chairman. Go right ahead.
That's fine. I think you answered my line 150 question with the part-time officers.
What number?
150.
Okay.
I think you answered my question with that, with the part-time wages.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a couple more times about part-time officers coming into the loop.
Yes.
But I guess my question would be is where they were in the budget already as being there, I'm assuming that's 2 positions, 2 part-time positions?
Yeah.
Budgeted for?
Yeah.
I guess my assumption would have been that everything related to put them on the street would have already been in the budget moving forward already.
There's been no money in the budget for part-time officers other than wages since the beginning, since I've been here.
Okay. And we will be actively looking for those
Immediately.
Okay.
As soon as I get the nod for January 1st.
Okay.
And those would be, you'd be searching for ones that are already certified. I
That's
take it,
correct.
so that's,
Right.
okay.
Right. $430, building maintenance.
Yeah. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I'll be with you in a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I would think that the gutters, and you have notes in here as locks on the room doors, I would think those should come out of the government building maintenance fund, our side. That would be my own thought. Is that the board's consensus as well?
I would say the gutters, anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've already seeked out rough estimates to come up with that number as the increase. I don't know if you've gotten rough estimates of verbals or whatever.
The lock piece.
Yeah. Was a substantial piece of that.
Yes, that's because we're going to have to make a lot of changes that may involve having to have an electrician come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because the room needs to remain secure to the extent that we don't have prisoners able to escape.
Right.
But at the same time, when the fire alarms go off, anybody that is in that room or tries to flee through that room, they need to be able to get out.
Right.
So it's more involved than, throwing on a new door lock.
I'm just going to interject here just for a second. The reasons for increases or decreases, if you see a little asterisk, that is because the chief has kindly put together a end of year list. So those might come out of his proposed budget if we have money at the end of the year.
Okay.
So every time you see a little asterisk, that was on his,
Oh,
if we can take it out of this year's budget.
we'll do it. Okay. Okay. Next one would be. Oh, where was I? Well, let's go with 618.
Yes, sir.
I would think, and this is more of a move rather than a removal. I would think that the filing cabinets would be a one-time purchase. I don't think that would be something that would be on a rotation, say, replacement purchase.
Well, I keep on buying them, so it hasn't been one time. We run out of space because the building it's done. There's no more places for me to go except up in the floors. So I'm replacing low filing cabinets with high horizontal filing cabinets, and I'm filling. So while I agree that it would seem to make sense at one time this year, sure, but
Moving forward.
over the last 3 years, I've bought filing cabinets every year.
$685.
Yes, sir.
Kind of along the same lines, I would think 2 of those radios would be a one-time purchase to get us up to staff. 1 would be a rotation. So I would my own feeling would be to raise the proposed 1 radio rate to get that in rotation type thing, and make the 2 purchase as a one-time. That'd be my own thought. Because you're adding 2 to the
Yeah, I
entire
understand.
fleet, and then
Yep.
that would be my thought.
Yep, and that's fine with me.
Okay.
Again, it's the important piece for me is getting the radios that we need.
Obtained.
Right. Which line you pay for them out of, Mr. Chairman, doesn't really matter.
Well, I'm just thinking moving forward, that would be a number that would
Yep.
be reflected
Sure.
more correctly, I'll say.
Right.
So I don't know what each radio breaks down to, but
So if that's, I'll make a note to myself, but if that's what the board decides to do, just please let me know, and I'll make it a more
is that
permanent
the board
note.
consensus?
Yes.
Well, that's got a lot to look over on this thing for, but
What's that?
these radios are what, the portables you're replacing?
Yes, sir.
So you're gonna replace 1, is the way I read it, 2 for a part-timer, so it's a total
Add
of...
2.
They're actually
So it's
they're
actually-
actually all replacements.
Yeah, 3 radios, it's gonna be 2 for the part-timers and 1 new
Right.
one. So that's what it breaks down to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't see we're moving them, dropping it down to 2. It's gonna be 3 radios, no matter which way you look at it.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying to remove it, I'm saying is to move the item.
Right.
Because I don't think it'd be an accurate reflection for moving forward in years.
Yeah,
I agree.
and earlier, what I had said too is that it would be 2 new radios for part-time officers. That's not accurate.
Well, you want to
It's
move it,
replacement.
you want to move that down to the one-time
What
budget?
R&R Communications has done is they have done an inventory of the serviceability of our portable radio system, and they've discovered that, I forget how many, a number of them are completely failed. They cannot be repaired. They have to be replaced, and that's where these, rob Peter to pay Paul. If they were there for part-timers before and they were still working, well, the full-time guys are using them. So we got to replace them.
So, but think, I guess I'll say 2020, are you going to replace 3 radios?
I hope not.
Okay. So that's
The
where I'm
desire would be to start, right away in 2019, a 1 radio replacement plan every year. So we are always
right.
buying radios and replacing them and getting rid of the stuff that's failing.
Right. And that's why the way I interpreted it is that it was going to be a 1 replacement per moving forward.
That's the idea.
So
Right.
I would think
So I
we need to
agree
move
with
that. Okay. So I think we're going to move 2 radios to one-time purchase line and keep 1 in that communication equipment line.
Okay.
Line 700.
Yep.
Set? All set? Okay. I guess I question just I know we went down 500, but in the last 3 years we've spent $40. Is that because of personnel restrictions, or I'm just kind of wondering why we...
Well, there's a number of reasons. The prior prosecutor was disinclined to engage in diversion.
Okay.
This prosecutor is a little more forward-thinking and is interested in diversion where it's possible. And frankly, there's an assumption, a projection that we'll have a school resource officer, and that there will be times that the school resource officer is going to need funding for things that are student safety related, and that type of thing. And this is the line that I would anticipate that coming from.
Just clarification, not a question.
The CRO.
SRO?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to clarify it because last year they went for it and
Yeah.
Hennigan didn't want anything to do with it. Has that been changed?
I guess on the John Stark side, the Henniker involvement was 0 for us.
That's what my comment earlier was, is that the superintendent is bringing that forward. I don't have a date that we'll be presenting that to the boards yet.
All right, so kind of like last year, we'll get a yay or nay from you.
Yes.
In short term.
There have been several. Some were pretty well publicized incidents that occurred at the schools that it would have been nice to have had a school resource officer involved. The number of residents that were surprised that our school resource officer hadn't handled this before we had to call the state police in and so forth, were as equally surprised to find out we didn't have it. So of course I can't predict. My crystal ball is just not as clear as I'd like it to be. But now with a couple years in a row where we've had significant events occur at the schools, it makes too much sense not to have a school resource officer there.
Okay. Well, I guess, all right.
So once we know.
So once we know, again, that's going to be, to me, it's going to be on that separate warrant article.
Yep.
So that can be changed, right after the deliberative session,
Yep.
first round. So, my next question would be, $741.
Yes, sir.
The John Stark radio repeater.
Yes.
That is for in-building only? Is that what you said?
That's to enhance operations at the school.
Okay.
It would be, the goal is that the repeater would, and frankly, you'd probably be better off asking R&R Communications this, but my understanding is that this would be a unit that would be on the outside of the building that would be capable of penetrating into the building. Whereas right now, because the antennas are at a distance, they're simply unable to penetrate through the steel and cement. So go ahead with your question.
Okay. I guess that kind of answers my question because of the fact that I was wondering if there was going to be more so geared to the building with the caveat of potentially being another site that kind of like the voter sites we have kicked around town. If it would help in that situation as well, or if it was just devoted to the school. And I believe the interpretation
right.
I'm getting is just devoted to the school.
Well, if it was inside the building, I'd say sure. But if it's mounted on the exterior of the building, it would probably take care of that whole west side. Well, the immediate of that west side.
I guess maybe just to maybe we can get a hold of R&R just to clarify back and forth on that. You know, if there's two benefits or just singular benefit.
And quite frankly, just my little editorial remark, Mr. Chairman, is that even if it only benefited the school, with that many faculty, staff, and students in there, Monday through Friday, the risk of the fire department and the police department being unable to communicate it's absurd.
Has been experienced by me. $37.40.
Safety medical gear.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
The AEDs, is that in conjunction with utilizing the same vendor that supplies the rest of the town and the?
Yeah, that's the price that the fire department gave us.
Okay. That's my question. I'm out of questions for the PD.
I've got one.
Okay. I don't feel so. No.
8440.
Hold on.
Oh,
Police cruiser.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Next page, that was easy. Go ahead.
Well, number one, I'm not a fan of putting it in the operating budget, but my question is, what are you planning on purchasing?
The number that's there is for the car that we have now, the Dodge Charger.
I'm not in favor of that at all. I would like to see an SUV kept in the fleet.
We took delivery today of a Dodge Durango SUV to test drive for the next 30 days. Now, the problem is that it costs more than...
I understand that.
Yeah.
So with the number of back roads and whatnot we have in this town, I would like to, my personal opinion, I would like to see an SUV kept.
There's two things. I don't think that the fact that CIP is only seeing the Charger is insurmountable. Maybe I'm wrong. But on the Durango, this is the first year that they've put this Durango model out. So, for instance, when we went to our vendor that can, give us prices like this on the Charger, because the Charger has been a model that's been out for several years, they are stumbling on their words like, we have to guess, we're not really sure, we haven't seen the specs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, as much as I enjoyed driving that truck today, and I've made a note to myself that you would see that in next year's budget presentation, to replace car 6 when car 6 is ready to go, which is the SUV. Excuse me. I don't recommend it this year simply because I can't give you a number on the cost of the upfit. And as you saw this past year, the cost of an upfit is darn near as much as it costs for the car. And there's more that has to go into that car. There's more cages, there's more lights, it's more.
Okay, so the Explorer's not ready to be replaced yet.
Right now, no. Right now, if the ACO vehicle can be milked for another year, my recommendation would be, and it won't be up to me, it'd be for that car 6 would then become the ACO vehicle. And we'd replace car 6 with another SUV. But again, that's not going to be up to me. That's going to be up to my successor.
Yep. Okay.
Now, Chief, didn't we go over, I think when we were, maybe 2 years ago now, when we did the first batch of Chargers, didn't we go over ground clearance numbers, and it wasn't really that different? I don't think it was really that different between
It's 3 inches. It's 3 inches exactly.
We went over that.
Yeah,
last year.
I met with the Dodge people when I was down at the IACP, and for that specific purpose, I wanted to talk to them about the differences between those cars because I got asked that during CIP, and my recollection was that the difference was negligible. Well, 3 inches is 3 inches. You know, I went down Cottage Road 2 weeks ago in a Dodge Charger, and I had to creep down it because it was in poor condition. Today, I was able to go down it effortlessly because those 3 inches make the difference. So John's right. And very frankly, the storage space in the back side of the Durango is significantly greater. Once you start packing the trunk of the Charger with the radio mounts and the computer mounts and so forth, it's robbed of storage space for equipment. The Durango has that space. It's a good idea to have one. And you know, again, my successor might decide that they want to go all SUVs. Well, that's their decision.
That's a debate they can have.
That's right. They can take it up with you.
That's right. I guess I do have one more question. Line 635.
Yes, sir.
Not so much about the number or the gallons. There was a, this is kind of off topic, but while we got you here, there was a problem with one of the vehicles having an issue starting because of the octane ratings.
Yeah.
Has that been kind
resolved?
of, I don't want to, yeah.
No.
Patched, band-aided?
No, we're continuing to do what we've been doing.
Which is the additive?
Additive.
Okay. So, for those of you that were kind of talking a little cryptic, not really, but there was a issue with one of the vehicles having an extended crank. You push the start button and it would just sit there and crank and it wouldn't start. And it went to Dodge. Chief brought it over to Dodge, and they recommended that we, the engineers at Dodge recommended we run a higher octane fuel. And in the ground, obviously, as municipal bid, we get 87. I think the minimum they said was 89 minimum. So we have been using an octane boost supplement at every fuel up, and it seems to have helped, maybe not cured, but helped. Exactly, knock on wood, with all the vehicles. So I guess that was my clarification more so than anything number-wise. But I just want to make sure that was still working.
Yep, so far.
Okay, no, that's good.
In fact, I'm gonna ask some more questions.
While we're on that topic, though, did we ever get a hold of Irving?
No, but it's time to get a hold of them for price anyways.
Okay.
Right. You gotta buy 93 though, it's gonna be really
89
expensive.
is a blend, so it's either gonna be 93 or 87. Right. So I'm thinking that it's probably gonna be a substantial upfit.
It's gonna be expensive, 93 is expensive.
Yeah, so, but we'll see what the numbers come back as. We won't know until we get them. Anybody else for the police department?
I have one question. You've got 2 new police officers on here full-time?
No.
No, they're not.
No.
Not in there.
Are you looking at 113?
Yep.
Yep. So what the number that you see there on line 113, that is for the existing authorized strength under the current CBA.
11.
Right, 11.
You have 11 now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what's in there.
So I'm recommending to the board. Frankly, I'm recommending to the board that you go beyond 2. You should. A town this size, with this population, with the growth during the summer months, every formula that I know how to use suggests that you should have 17 police officers. In 2007, you had the New Hampshire Association of Chiefs of Police do a personnel study here. 11 years ago, they told you should have 17 police officers. That doesn't mean that tomorrow you need to hire 6 more officers, but you need to be, should, I'm using these words pretty loosely here. My recommendation to you is that if you want to have, if you want to try and slow, you're not going to stop it, but if you want to try and slow the number of people that I have asking me about, how come I never see a car go past my house? It's a simple thing, but safety and security is largely an emotional thing. You have to feel safe and secure, and if the cars are always at the station because the officers are always doing these investigations that are becoming more and more complex, they're not getting out into your homes. So anyway, that's the long explanation, Sherry, for saying that I'm asking for 1 new officer for patrol and 1 new officer for school resource officer 2, and that my recommendation is that you start planning on hiring at a regular rate until you hit the number of 17.
But it will be a warrant article for those
Yep.
2 positions not included in this operating budget. Anything else on the police department? ACO. 150.
Line 150? Go ahead.
What is the current model of hours to rate fund right now? At the current funding?
I'd have to do the math. What was happening until we met last spring and rearranged this was the cultural model that people that needed the animal control officer called the animal control officer. Under the model that we have planned for is that all calls for service for animal control would go through the police department, through our dispatch center. It would be dispatched the same way a police officer would be dispatched to a call, which would better enable us to triage the calls, frankly. So the exposure, as we all know, in order for them to remain as a part-time person, they have to work less than 30 or less hours each week. So the funding number there that you see, the recommended number is based on a 30-hour week, though I hope that we will be significantly below that using the per diem model versus the go whenever you want to model.
I guess was that at the 15?
15.
Okay.
Do you think the $15 an hour is causing a problem that you're not getting people to?
I think the $12 or $13 an hour that we're paying now is what's. The $15 an hour is a jump up. Yeah. And again, I pointed out that the regional rate of over $16 an hour does create some gambling on our part that we would get somebody for 15. But we won't know until we try. And right now, I've tried twice this calendar year and 0 applications. So, if $15 is approved and we continue to get 0 applications, we'll have to revisit it. But until then, we won't know.
Okay. Any other questions on ACO? Well, I've been held hostage. Any questions for the chief in general?
Point. Not for me. I got to digest some of this.
I didn't figure I was done.
Next time. Yeah. You've just started the gauntlet, so.
Yeah. I don't remember what the agenda said. Do you have non-public tonight?
If we do, it would be at the very end.
At the very end. Yep.
Okay.
I'll take questions
Do you
from the
need
finance
a
committee.
non-public?
Thank you, that's what I was going to ask. Does anybody on the finance committee want to ask questions now? If not, I do.
Okay.
I want to start with the cruiser.
How many, do you have a few or?
3.
Okay. I just asked you to come up to the mic. What?
Sure, no problem.
But in answer to my question, do you need to have a non-public?
Probably should.
Oh, no,
Okay.
don't go over
Okay.
far. You're here.
No, you ain't going very far.
Okay. Lori Davis, Chair of the Finance Committee. Regarding the cruiser, which car is it replacing and how does it reflect? It picks up, I'm not quiet.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah.
They hear me quite well. And how does it, is the police chief's cruiser involved with any of the new cruisers that we've bought over the past year when we do this? So which cruiser is being replaced and is his car involved with any of this?
It would replace car 9 and no.
Number 2, we're hearing the words that we need more police officers. This summer, we had 3 officers out for 17 weeks. We had people running 16 hours a day. We had officers that were on duty by themselves at night, and I am well aware, because I've gotten a report through the state of exactly how many calls for what we've had them for at every hour of the day. And our call level is not warranting this. And the mere fact that we were able to survive this summer with 3 people out makes me question the severity and the necessity of this. Do we have a response to this?
Would you like to comment or no?
That's a good question.
That was kind of a statement.
Okay. I would like an explanation as to why we need this. If we can run down with 3 full-time officers out for 17 weeks and have people working 16 hours a day, and we were able to handle the coverage this summer, why suddenly do I need more officers on deck?
Overtime.
We did not handle the summer the way it should have been handled. Simple as that.
Not to benefit the town.
Not to anybody's benefit.
Right.
This summer was exhausting for our officers. The community was grossly under-patrolled, considering an increase in population by nearly 50% for the bulk of the summer. And every effort that we can make to change those things, we owe it to the officers, and we certainly owe it to the community.
That's not a justification, but my other question is this. We are looking at part-time officers, an ACO officer that has yet to be replaced. It's been over a year. We have an interesting job description for that. Has anybody considered with this budget, maybe we need to revisit the hours that we're looking at for the ACO and what their duties are? And looking at the SRO officer, having been up at Henniker already, I have a good feel for what's going on. One thing everybody has to keep in mind, it's not so much a question, well, yeah, it is a question. I realize that the police chief, and I'd like his take on this, he said we need officers up at the schools because we've had some situations. We all know what the situations are. However, no matter what happens up at that school, it is now required by law that we have to have the state and the FBI in if we have these situations occurring. So my question is, if that's required to have, why do we need to have this?
It would be really awesome if we could avoid having to call the state police and the FBI in. A school resource officer is that their primary responsibility is to provide guidance and support to the faculty and staff of the school to avoid these types of things. To be there to intervene with in a cooperative team effort with the schools so that we don't have to have the state police parked out in front of our schools, so that we don't have to involve the FBI to come down and do anti-terror phone tracing back to California. it'd be awesome if we didn't have to do that.
One statement and I'm done. We all know the terrorist problems that happened across the United States this summer. Parkland's a good description of that. They had all these things in place. It didn't solve the problem.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to have a comment to part of that. I have a child at that school, and there's a lot more that goes on there than the few incidents that were publicized. And I know that a school resource officer would have stopped a lot of stuff, such as the bullying, such as some of the other threats that were made to kids outside of what was publicized. And I think that that's a misstatement to come out like that. I think it's something that's long overdue. And I know that the SAU has been put on notice by my family and other families involved in some of this, that we're not going to take this because they didn't act and call law enforcement the way it should have been from the get-go. So I want that on the record.
All right, and I'm also going to state too that I think that, an ounce of prevention is worth the pound of cure. Prevention goes a long ways on a lot of this, and if you're not there, you're not preventing or heading off any potential issues. You're being reactive, and I don't think that's where we need to be. So, again, that's my own opinion, but that's where I'm at with it.
I have one question for the chief, though, in response to some of that. Chief, and the shortage this summer, how much of that $97,579.35 was caused to the fact we were 3 men short in your
I'm sorry.
overtime budget?
The overtime.
Overtime.
The overtime.
Your overtime line, which was number 140. You said to date you spent $97,579.34.
I would have to work with, maybe Beth knows already.
We should probably Naomi.
Naomi might.
So apparently there's a number available to you.
And
Okay.
let me just ask again, Chief, what did you say the hours were being worked, roughly? A shift was being, a shift length during the summer for one of the officers was probably approximately...
60.
That varied. What's interesting is that the collective bargaining agreement calls for a minimum of 2 officers per shift. It would have been really irresponsible of me to enforce that by forcing mandatory overtime. We would have had officers working in some cases 6-7 days a week, or 16 hours a day every shift. As it is, what I elected to do with the concurrence agreement, however you want to put it, with the bargaining unit, was that every vacant shift would be posted as overtime. And that as long as the terms of the agreement in terms of not exceeding 16 hours, the officers could sign up for 16 hours plus 8 hours rest. They could sign up for whatever they needed to sign up for or felt they were capable of signing up for. There were some shifts, there were some weeks. This is an opportunity to recognize a truly outstanding young police officer. Sergeant Ryan Frisbee worked constantly this summer to ensure that our cadre of young officers received the level of supervision that they needed. His overtime was probably greater than anybody else's. But that does not diminish the amount of overtime a number of officers worked over the summer. Just keeping minimums. And as Ms. Davis pointed out, there were a lot of shifts that went with signal coverage. And that is, for a town of 60 square miles, if they get in trouble out in front of this building and their nearest backup is in Henniker or New Boston or Goffstown or Dunbarton, they're in real trouble. They're in real trouble. So I understand the sentiment behind that minimum staffing of 2 officers per shift. It just makes sense. It's just plain sensible. But right now, with the conditions, with the number of police officers that we have available to us, it's just not possible. Once we have our 11th officer back from the police academy, then it's possible. It is not possible for 24-hour service. I mean, we've challenged the chart as many different ways as we possibly can. I'm not a puzzle guy, but some pretty smart people have looked at this, and we can't cover a 24-hour chart with 11 people and meet the statutory obligations and meet the CBA. We can't do it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is, I don't care what you do. If you're at the 16-hour number, you're not sharp. You're not on top of your game.
No.
There's a study. There's a study, and it was. And I'll tell you, it's. When I first read it, it was pretty new, but it was actually conducted by the Department of Transportation in Australia, and they did a comprehensive study to measure the effect of sleeplessness on drivers. And what they discovered, I think the number was 12 hours. Once you hit the 12-hour mark, your response time, your physical responses to stimulus, diminishes at the same rate as adding a drink every hour, an alcoholic beverage every hour. You go up 0.01 every hour. So if you're at 16, you're yeah. And we're asking them to make complex decisions quickly and accurately at the equivalent of 0.04. That's crazy.
Right.
Okay. I don't have the dollar amount, I only have the number of hours worked total.
Okay. That's fine. You want to continue with that, or?
Oh, I'm just curious to see what it would be, but it's not necessary right this moment. We'll find out.
Any other questions of the chief? No?
Tom.
Thank you, Chief.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Tom,
I am going to stick around, though.
Okay.
what's that, Tom?
Clarify something regarding the finance committee, if I may?
Yep. Come on up.
Come on down.
If I come here as a member of the Finance Committee and give my opinion, it's not the opinion of the Finance Committee, it's my opinion. And I think that when one person from a committee like that gets up and gives an opinion, it has to be taken that way. Our job here should be to gather information from the department heads and from the board and bring that information back for discussion to the Finance Committee and not present an opinion as if it's an opinion of that group, because something that's never been discussed certainly isn't an opinion of that group.
Correct.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other finance committee members?
Can I ask a question?
Clarification of something?
I just wonder if there's any grants involved, if there's any grants we can get on any of the radio equipment or items like that. The AED, the repeater.
I can't speak to the AED. I have had some discussion with Superintendent Dr. Taccone Moore about the possibility of grant funding for the radio repeater in the building. It's not coincidental at all. The school boards that she is responsive to has given her instructions that school safety is a top priority, and as a result they have been successful at obtaining some school safety related grants, and she believes that she may be able to either use some of the existing funds that have come from that have come already for that purpose, or she may be able to acquire additional grant funding. I didn't bring that up before because, quite frankly, that is completely and totally out of my control. It would be wonderful if we were able to pay for that with grant money. But I haven't a clue. But the necessity of that is so important that I think it should be budgeted, and if we get the grants to replace those budgeted funds, that's wonderful. But we need to get that repeater in.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we're going to move on.
Do you want to hop a little bit out of order and make your decisions? You're doing your minutes, from 10-1.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there should be another set on here too. 9/17 should be on here. Because in the 10-1 minutes, you've got some people here that are interested in the gazebo.
Okay.
That said we were going to make that decision tonight.
Okay.
Because they were going to go look at the attic area.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm just asking if you
Board, want to interject that right now? You think?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Gazebo discussion would be Weare Historical Society.
Good evening. Neil Kirk, Mount Dearborn Road, member of the Historical Society Board of Directors. You had given us 6 weeks or so to get estimates on restoring the gazebo, and we were unable to do that because the quality craftsmen that we contacted were so busy with their other jobs that they couldn't give us an estimate. And I understand this has been a problem for a number of different projects throughout the town. Last weekend, Dave Willits and I got into the roof. With your permission, at the last meeting, we cut the lock and got into the attic. The attic is free from rot with two exceptions. One at the very peak, where at some point there must have been something protruding through. The tops of most of the rafters, or at least half the rafters, have some rot in them. Not significant, but it's there. And then at the bottom, where the water went through down, there's also rot basically on the bottom, about halfway up through many, I don't know if it's most or not, of the joists, the ceiling joists, the ceiling rafters. But all around the perimeter, at the eaves and throughout the rest of it, where the roof was intact, there is no rot. So it's pretty clear to us that this could be restored if that rot were dealt with one way or another, and there are different ways to do it. Last time I was here, I told you that we had heard from people who said there was the gazebo was safe. But I have to inform you that we heard from Mike Pelletier, who went there, this is oral, and said the thing is shaky. And when David and I were up in the attic, we could, if you moved around the right way, we could move that thing. But we both agreed that it could be stabilized by putting 2x6s from the center of the floor, you'd have to put something there as an anchoring point, to the top of each of the pillars, which would, in effect, stabilize it so it wouldn't fall, but it would render it unsafe for people to use. So if we do that, we need to put this plastic orange fencing around the outside to keep people off and out. So what we would like you to do is to allow us to put in that kind of bracing and that kind of fencing, and then give us until May 1st, over the winter when craftsmen are not as busy, to get the estimates we need to decide what the restoration cost is and whether in fact it can be restored at a reasonable price, or whether it needs to be knocked down and left alone or replaced with some other kind of a structure. Either, as we discussed last time, a replication of the existing structure or a pre-built structure. But if we don't, if you knock it down now, you eliminate the ability to restore it. And I believe that can be, we think that can be done. The question is one of cost. But I think that the building can be stabilized and made safe until next May 1st through the bracing that I just described.
Do you have a cost for what it would cost for the
The bracing, couple
Yeah.
$100, and there's $351 in the Historical Society gazebo account, which would cover the cost of that. And that's just for the 2x4s. The labor would be volunteers.
Now, this is more so the report of what we went forward from last week of trying to get a better determination on the upper half of the building.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know that the ladies are involved in the Historical Society as well. And we have Betty here, and Tim, and Helene, all from the Historical Society as well. So, I guess my question as a board member and as a resident would be, you know, is the projected cost, even as a verbal, going to be relatively manageable rather than a replacement building, and or you know, I'm all for keeping the, if it's reasonable to keep it, I'm all for keeping it there. If it's not reasonable to keep it there, then I guess I kind of want the consensus of what the, you know, Historical Society said. You know, if you know what Mr. Kirk has said is the consensus, then that's the consensus. I just want to make sure that, you know, that we're holding it up for the right reasons. That's all.
Neil, did Mike give you any indication of how much it would cost?
Even verbally, or
I mean, even,
head nod?
you know.
No. You mean to restore it?
Yeah, as far
Fully
as,
restored.
Even as far as labor, just labor to.
As you know, there were estimates for various parts of it, which, for a whole variety of reasons, are probably no longer valid today. You'll recall there was an estimate of, I've forgotten, $10,000 or $15,000 to put in a foundation, which was, at least we believe today, totally unnecessary. We had an estimate to replace some of the pillars, but we'd never had an estimate to take care of the rot in the roof, because its existence wasn't, part of its existence was known because it could be seen from the bottom, but the top part was unknown before. In the worst case, if it turns out that it's going to cost more than anybody thinks it's worth, then it can be raised next spring. Okay? If in fact the estimates come in and we decide that this is something that's affordable, then we can make the decision, the board can make the decision at that time whether you would approve us, the Historical Society, or somebody else, not the taxpayers, doing fundraising and raising that cost. And that's another issue. But we are not proposing to put a warrant article in for money to pay for this, and we're not asking the selectmen to put money for this in the budget. That's not what's up for discussion.
Right. I believe that, and it was discussed, I believe, last week, that was deemed by the trustees as a town building. So anything that would happen to it would have to come through this board.
Absolutely. So it was given to the town by the Historical Society in 89,
yeah.
And there's a plaque up there which I think is still legible.
Yeah, yeah, you can still read it. Yeah, it's on the East Roadside entrance.
Right.
Yeah, I did see that when I was over there. All right, what is the board's consensus? What do you want to do?
My concern is the safety. I mean, boarding it up is supported to keep it from falling down, okay, stabilize it. Putting orange construction fence out there, to me, doesn't add to the safety of it, and for the fact that the kids are out there daily, and they're gonna come over that fence like it's not even there, and we're looking at a safety issue. That's my biggest concern. If the board considers going forward, I would rather see it no later than April 1st. Before the kids get out of school, have this thing done, have some type of estimates, for the simple fact is, they're gonna get out of school, and then that's when they're gonna be over there even more in droves, trying to play around with that with their after school.
That works.
We had more problems with them this summer, and they're trying to keep them out off and on, even before school got out, and even after school got out, so that's my only concern, is if not, and find out what the price is, that way, by April, if we don't know, then we can raise it and either save what we can or put a new structure in there. But right now, you even by your own saying. If the center, the roof joists are, to the top of the roof are rotted at the ends, then that thing's not stable. It could come down with a good stiff wind. So that, there's no structural strength to that roof at all right now. That's one of the main hitching points right in the top. So,
The roof is stable in the sense you could walk on it if you wanted to.
well, I wouldn't want
It's
to.
the top part of the joist at the center.
Where they all connect in the center, if that's rotted, that's not real stable. A good stiff
Especially-
wind or a lot of snow load could take that thing down,
Yeah,
so.
you're going through all the snow and ice.
That's my opinion on it, but I'll go along with what the rest of the board says.
Okay. Board consensus, entertain a motion?
Well, the first thing you gotta do is, you want me to rescind my motion?
Yes. If you could, if you're willing to.
I'm willing to and give them till April 1st.
Okay. Sounds like we have a rescind motion and a motion made.
Yeah.
No second. Again, and you know, any discussion I want to discuss. Again, with the term of April 1st, as you know, and I don't even think that. I would hope that we'd have numbers before that.
Yeah.
I would like to think. And again, like you said, good quality craftsmen are going to be hopefully gearing up for 2019. But you know, with a no tax impact, and I mean, I do like the structure. I mean, it is the focal point of the town as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, it's all I've ever known, but I'm just a young buck, so.
Really?
I was 3 years old when you guys donated it. Okay, so.
Yeah, you are. I remember when there was a house there.
I remember when there wasn't one.
So, I mean, I was 3 years old, so it's kind of been a staple to me. So, like I said, at least you know, give the historical society some time, and again, if you know, if your guys' wind changes as far as the historical society says, you know, hey, we really, you know, we're looking at this thing and it's really not worth it, then let us know. Again, communication, please, and we'll reapproach from there. So, does that work? Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention?
Abstention.
2 abstentions. All right, so to April 1st. Thank you. They abstained. Yeah. Tom, I got a question. When did we get that quote for all that work? Was that 2015 that we got that?
Yeah,
I believe so.
I shared it with you once.
last year.
Yes.
I believe.
I think it was 15.
We got some of it.
Going back 3 years, 3 months.
Yeah.
3 years,
Yeah.
3 years, 6 months.
We had some
Yeah.
just as of last year.
Put in the bracing immediately.
Yes.
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 Yeah, that would be something.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want that thing to fall down.
Yeah.
If it falls down, it's all over.
Right.
That becomes a moot point.
Just hope somebody
Yeah.
isn't in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The reason I ask about the timeline, we got a quote once from a vendor. We kind of all-inclusive packaged it with the town hall, and that quote at that time was $16,500.
Right.
And that was again only one quote, and
One for the pillars.
and the scope of work was not what you guys were looking into.
And the other one was 14 for upgrades to the actual foundation.
Right.
But nothing else.
Right. So again, I'm optimistic. I'll say that. So.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of 9/17.
I don't have those with me. Okay.
I can find them now.
Go again and not find it.
I don't need to do them.
I just
Maybe
need,
we won't do them.
I just need to change it.
You tabled them on the first.
I'm not bad. I'm not just
You want my copy? You want my copy?
No. Don't fail me now, technology. 8/27 draft, 9/10.
You go on the website and find them too.
All right, there's the agenda for it.
I actually looked. I don't think they were on there. Yeah, I couldn't find them.
Oh, yeah.
I looked the other day for them, I
Oh,
thought.
yes. This was the one right
The
here.
end of September wasn't there. I thought I only saw through September 17th or something. I might be wrong, but I looked quickly.
That was 9/10. Or I won't find them. Okay, good. Let's just take these. Okay. I did not delete them. They're in there somewhere. Page 1 for September 17th.
17? Yeah. But there's no more. That's where it stops, I think.
10 winners for all that.
Anything on page 1? 2. And on page 2? Page 3. Four.
So good.
5. And 6. Move to approve as written. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, they there. Okay. Anything on page 1 for 10/1, October 1st? I got one thing. Under selectmen present, I would like to be referred to by my full name. That's all.
Okay, I think also I messed that up in the last one.
Okay.
On 17.
That's fine.
Frederick.
Yeah, Frederick W.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta put W
Yeah,
in
there's
there.
a Y on this one. I took the Y off the first one.
Yeah. The W should be in there because my father's not sitting here, so.
Okay. We had the Y on it at the other one.
That's fine.
Well, your name tag says Ricky.
Exactly.
So I wasn't
Well, that's
sure.
what everybody knows me as, exactly. I'm sure, that's
But
fine.
on the minutes, you want to be Frederick W.
Correct.
Okay.
Frederick, yes.
Picky.
I am, yes.
Anybody else?
I've heard this is a legal document, that's all, I don't know. Anything on page 1? 2?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
The first full paragraph, the 1 to 3rd line up, it should say if master key doesn't fit.
Okay.
Just have to padlock if,
Mhm.
instead of, I think it says is. I
No.
wrote over it so we can't read what's
Yeah, it says
underneath.
is.
Okay.
Anything else on page 2?
Nope.
The same paragraph that we were just talking about, the line starts padlock fits the town master key. I believe it's HAAS, correct? Not HASS,
What's that?
Yeah?
his name,
Oh, yeah.
isn't it? 2 A's, not 2 S's?
Mm.
Mr. Haas.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we did it before the right way.
Yep, I saw that. Anything else on page 2? Page 3? Page 4? 5? 6? And 7. Move to approve the October 1st as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't here.
And just to follow up on one token that we were just reading through, of course I lost it. Since we're reading your report anyways, the Conservation Commission and their requirements to uphold the purchasing policy, was that touched upon this week?
No.
Okay. speech. There it is. All right, manifest. Long-winded speech. Move the order of the treasurer to sign payroll and accounts payables checks dated October 18th, 2018 is included in the following manifest. Payroll manifest of $53,053.52 for weekly payroll, and accounts payable manifest of $65,344.84, and Weare School District payable of $450,000 for a total of $568,398.36. And the following manifest were previously ordered to be signed at the October 1st Board of Selectmen meeting. We had no meeting. It was payroll manifest $51,602.37 for checks dated 10/11, and accounts payable of $47,734.36 for checks dated 10/11. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Administrators report.
Alright, a few things to sign. The first one, Maureen asked if you guys would sign this. This is the state of New Hampshire for the election. It appears that there's 3 lines. So 3 of you signed, 3 of you signed. This is for the November election, so pass it down, don't fight over it. I'm going to pass this other, we've been doing fairly well with getting back our money on tax deeded properties. So I have 4 people that have paid, and we're going to deed them back, so you guys will find your names in the appropriate spots.
Cool.
So
That's nice.
I'm also going to send down eviction notices, go with the property on Mountain Road. There's 4 sets. You need to sign all 4 sets coming your way. And what it is there is...
Do I have to sign everything too?
Yeah, you all do. Or 2, whatever. 3 of you do.
Oh.
Same 3 would be handy, unless you really want to mess it up. So what there is there's eviction notices here. Just want to show you. There's 3 for each paper clip, and there's 4 paper clips. So you all have to sign 12 times, okay?
So this is why I have no signature left.
So you can pass it down. Those are for the eviction notices for the tax deeded auction. Which brings me to the next.
So now, how much money did this all come to? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You're going to put the date in at the top here?
Yeah, accepted already. So, I'm going to go back to, if you remember in the minutes for the 10-1, you were going to wait on finalizing the request from the Conservation Commission until you were all here. So I guess I'd ask you to do that. And because I have an auctioneer, I have an agreement with St. Jean for a list of properties. It says 16 tax deeded properties. But the 16
So I have to sign again.
have the 2 taken off. The 2 public access to Daniels Lake and the access to Forest March from the bridge. Those 2 pieces that you gave easements to the Snowmobile Club for. Those 2 you talked about that night, which was I think on the 10th, is removing them. So I did remove them from the list, leaving 16. Of those 16, though, you had a request. You guys had a request for these out here from Conservation. And Jack was not present, so you said you wanted to wait for the entire board.
That's correct.
Sorry.
Did you get that packet? Did he get the packet?
This
No.
That was an email that came, and there where the request is to take this number of parcels off the auction list.
Yeah, I remember we spoke about that.
This you already took off, and then the other one you took off down here.
Mhm.
Those I left on the list, but if it's not gonna, if you're gonna vote to leave it the same, then the agreement with the auctioneer works. If it doesn't, then
You got a problem.
we have to go back and tell St. Jean you're gonna take that many more off.
Right.
That's up to you
I
guys.
don't know what the board's opinion is, but I'd leave it just the way it is.
Yeah, we pulled off those
Those
two
two
little
spots
access.
which we gave the easement to.
Right.
Which was up by
Right. One
the
of
bridge.
them, yeah, one of them was perfect access from, I think, was it Twin Bridge to Daniels Lake? It was
Twin
nice,
Bridge.
Twin
like a little
Bridge.
footpath almost,
Yeah,
basically.
and the other one's up by Abijah
By
Bridge.
Bridge
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are two we pulled off. But, I mean, and there's possibility that they're not gonna sell.
There's some other ones.
And then we can
yeah.
revisit
Yeah,
after
we
that.
can revisit,
Right.
or, you
Give
know,
them, because there's like a 1.5 acre
yeah.
swamp area
But,
that
you know,
don't
some,
want it.
you know, they can bid on them.
All right, so the consensus
can't
of the board
prevent
then is to leave it all on there and see where it goes?
Yep.
Okay.
So with that being said, I have an agreement with St. Jean for the auction for 16 properties. And I guess I just wanted to, 16, it says, please note that this budget and fee structure is based on the premises that 13 will be sold at absolute auction and 3 have reserve bids, which we talked about. We just have to come up with a reserve, remember up on top? You had 3 in the reserves?
Well, I thought we were going to let it go and then have be a consensus, not really put a reserve on it.
Well, I think you have some costs
Starting.
to some of them.
Yeah.
Right.
We have, so I think,
But you guys have decided on reserve on the top 3, which have homes on them.
yeah,
Mhm.
one of them, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I can say them, it's public knowledge.
yeah.
208, 206 Mountain Road,
Yeah.
1131 River Road, and 325, 327 North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 3 that you were gonna have reserve bids on.
Yeah.
And the rest of them are an absolute. whatever you
Absolutely,
got.
yep.
Okay?
Yeah, they started whatever we owe on.
And it's scheduled for Saturday, November 17th at 10. They plan on running 2 ads in the Union Leader, 1 in the Sunday News, 3 in the Concord Monitor, and 2 in the Neighborhood News. In addition to that, they've got a 2-color, 1-page e-blast brochure detailing the properties that's going to be produced and forwarded electronically to 7,500 individuals on the email list who've expressed interest. The brochure will also be mailed first class to the abutters that I had supplied him with. So the total cost of advertising is $3,250, but the fee structure, it says that no fees or expenses are charged to the town. Is that?
That makes sense because he gets that in his.
He takes
Yeah,
it out
they
of
get-
Takes it off
in
the
his
top.
commission. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
premium.
So he talks about third-party bids at auction and closes. There's a 10% buyer premium charge to the buyer. All expenses and advertising is paid by St. Jean.
Mm-hmm.
That's structure A, no fees to the charge to the town. B is third-party bids and fails to close on the property, the town retains the deposit. The fee of 50% of the retained deposit is paid to St. Jean's.
Mm-hmm.
C, the removal of property from sale once auction proposal is signed. Flat fee of $150 per property if removed 21 days or longer prior to sale. A flat fee of $250 per property if removed 1 to 20 days before the sale. That must be what we have to pay.
Yeah, if you remove them.
And then D, the town of Weare cancels sales once marketing effort commences or fails to deliver good title on the properties at closing. There's a flat fee of $1,000 charged to the town, and the advertising is paid for the town. So, just so you know what you're getting into. That's why I said if you're going to change your mind.
At the end,
Right,
end.
and
if
that's
we
why I
change
didn't
it.
want to sign this if it said 16 and you were going to take some off.
Right. No.
So, and then it says service to be provided for the auction include the auction posted on the website at JSJ Auctions for 3 weeks prior to the sale, showing the property as requested by potential bidders, boundary lines, marking boundary lines on property if permitted, brochure mailed to all abutters, signs displayed on vacant parcels, PowerPoint presentation on the day of the sale, highlighting properties for sale, outstanding real estate taxes including interest and cost through the day of the sale made available, and voice recording of sale. I don't know what that means.
They usually record, they voice record, and they usually videotape the bidders too. So if someone tries to renege, so they didn't bid,
Okay.
they get a video
Do you have
and
any
an audio.
questions? So then they're looking for a signature on behalf of the town of Weare, but there's only one line.
Yay.
I vote that the chairman does it.
Oh, gee,
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Lovely.
You have to buy all the property.
Yeah. No.
We'll sell you that acre and a half of swampland.
Yeah, actually.
You guys are all right,
Three
you know
came
that?
off. That's 'cause we voted to get that other one back to the trailer park. Are they gonna buy that?
What's on there?
Oh, they're gonna go in. Or they're gonna buy it, is what they're gonna do.
They're gonna buy it if nobody buys it.
Nobody will buy that.
All right, that is that. Let me see if I got anything else good news for you. So you all signed out and cramped out?
Yeah.
That's it.
We've had enough tonight.
Okay.
Don't nominate me doing more.
So, let's start on the government building one.
There we go.
There's a message upstairs on my machine tonight that I got from the Walker Roofing, and they are gonna move the 80-foot lift in sometime this week.
Outstanding.
So, I don't know when, he didn't know when, and then once they move in, they're gonna start till the job's done. So,
Cool.
you'll see them moving in. At the same time, once they arrive, we can have the conversation about doing the Gordon Barns.
The barns.
and Brown buildings, yep.
I wonder if while they're up there, they can fix the lettering on this as town hall.
I do have the 8, we can put
We
that
gotta
back
put
up.
it back up.
Yeah.
All they gotta do is tack it.
Yeah.
Put it back up.
It needs a
Yeah.
little help, but they can
Yeah.
figure it out.
No, we have the 5 buckets of the coating
Right.
down there. I didn't go buy rollers or any of that
Yeah.
stuff, because I didn't know what they wanted.
Where is it?
It's down in the barn.
In the barn, okay.
Better get it out of there quick, or it gets too many
Yeah,
cold
it's gonna
nights. It won't do,
freeze.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it
won't
won't do
freeze,
it any
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, and then the gazebo, so that's good news. We'll move
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Gazebo, so might take 2 things off our list. The
Yeah.
gazebo we talked about already.
First.
The security camera at the safety complex, I spoke to Emily today. The gentleman has ordered the equipment, and once the equipment is in, they will be setting up for an install date,
Good.
which is perfect. The safety complex, I put in the RFP, Jan was there for 66.5, which represented the average for the roof for next year's
For the
warrant.
CIP.
CIP,
For
yeah.
CIP.
And that's a 50-year.
That was for the 50-year, yeah.
And they're gonna put a roof vent in too, right? Ridge vent. They're gonna put a ridge
It was
vent
part
in.
of whatever
Yeah.
that was, yeah. And then the food pantry, I did have a conversation with them. The building's still available. The price is down a little bit. And what I've done is, I've been talking with the trustees as well, and the trustee of the trust fund chair felt that it's time that maybe we all sit together and have a meeting. Because they want to help as well, but there's some questions there, the trustees. There is a little bit of money they can help with, but there's a lot of questions. So I'm trying to set up Wednesday at 5 o'clock here to meet. I still haven't, it's tentative at this point because I'm waiting to hear back on the food pantry, but I think there needs to have some conversation because the last day that they'll be down there where they currently are is the second week in November. So,
Get cracking then.
we need to get moving. Evidently, they went over and met over at the new building, and talked about some other things, so I just want, if you guys can kind of keep that open, I'm gonna try to get that confirmed tomorrow with them. I didn't hear from them, I don't believe it till I,
No, that's gonna be right at supper time.
am I bringing the supper?
I think you're gonna have to.
No, I don't have an answer back, so,
Okay.
Government buildings.
go ahead.
I guess this one's gonna be aimed at Sherry. The underpinning for Clinton Grove.
I haven't, oh, well, I was hoping that the guys that are supposed to be doing the storm windows were coming in and they were gonna look at that. But I have, and you haven't gotten any written quote yet either, and I actually even called their mother.
Oh, I haven't done anything from
I said, we haven't gotten anything.
Yeah.
We just want them, write it out on a piece of paper, the total amount, and send it to Naomi. That's all you know.
I guess.
Napkin.
I know this.
Put a post in,
Well, that was my question.
Can
was,
we- I
was
mean-
the fact of
cut a
is,
whiteout post and.
We need a couple, 3 posts put in probably.
well, is it getting worse? as time goes on, as it
Well,
sits here on the
it's,
dock, or?
yeah, it's over 6 inches drop from the front of the building to the back of the building. You know, you look at it and it does this.
It's not good.
That's not good.
So there's two or three posts there, probably 2. If we could put a couple cement blocks in and put a couple.
There was 2 there, and they were on.
They're both, yeah, they brought it away. So if we could put a couple cement blocks down and put up, you know, a 6-inch, 8-inch, jack it up and put a post in.
All right. I mean,
I mean, I don't have a problem going up and helping or whatever, but I just want to make sure we're all set with that if somebody does it from
Yeah.
historical
And
society.
who are we gonna get to do it?
Yeah, somebody knows what
Probably-
they're doing.
We get some people who'll do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no
we've
problem
got
with
some of the
Waiting
heavy,
signs, something
we've
like
got some
that, that'd be
steel
great.
jacks and stuff, and you gotta do it slow, you know, you take it up an inch or so at a time, and
That's it.
yeah. I just didn't know. I mean,
take a couple weeks to get it up, and then put the things in.
I guess I just want clarification because it's been sitting on here for a long time.
Yeah, I
just want
know.
to make sure that's not.
Nobody's bid on or brought anything for the
Right.
others either.
No,
and that's. I mean, but I just don't know. I'm thinking of the rate of progression.
Yeah, I just don't want it to keep going either.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just why I didn't know if that was something, you know. But
So if you don't have a problem, I'll coordinate that and get it done.
I don't have any problem. Board.
No?
No.
Mm.
You need a waiver or something for the people to volunteer?
Yep.
Yeah.
If that could be provided, that'd be great.
Okay. I'm sure we got something on file somewhere.
And the note on these spires for the town hall. Naomi, can you make a note that I put all the spires, the upper and lower panels and the spires, they're separated in the horse sheds?
Okay.
The old ones you're
The old
talking,
ones.
yeah.
And we'd like to retain those as well.
The old ones.
Yeah. the
Or at
spires.
least, yeah, probably. I mean,
Just when Walker gets
that's
there.
70, that was done, I think, in 71, the spires were redone, and the roof was reshingled
Okay.
in 71, so it's due. It was dripping a little water there when I was up there with them last year.
Okay.
So,
Are we putting new ones up?
Yes.
Okay.
But
He
I'm thinking for
wants-
design.
He wants to
Those for
keep
copies.
those.
they
For
just
For
need
design.
them, yeah, that,
design.
yeah.
And
And-
does anyone have any photos? I think John Van has aerial photos. Because Walker's gonna need some blueprints and
He's got,
pictures to go by
He was there.
beforehand.
he was there, he measured up stuff when he was there. He took information down. You know, and he had the fence. I said the only thing with the fence was I would like to see it picket, because when they did it the last time in the 70s, they just took it and
Square top.
square topped them right off, and they don't look so nice. But they're gonna do it over, you know, with
ASIC.
ASAC material, so we won't have to worry about that.
Okay, good. All right. The other thing I had a question was the line 7, which is the office ceiling and the dog house.
I haven't seen him. Is
Okay.
he around?
Yeah, he's kicking around.
Okay.
All right, he's still around.
Who's that?
Dave.
Oh,
And
He hasn't been around
I have
here.
one more question.
I haven't seen him. I
Did we
see him
check out
mowing
that
the lawn though over there,
grass?
line trimming over by the fire department the other
Yeah,
day.
I saw him the other day. Over
To work there? Work here? Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, it's
I don't think that's a problem.
It was over.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm just thinking before frost really sinks in, the putting the propane tank out in the yard, if that was an option we were gonna do for this, instead of doing the oil tanks.
Are you
in the
gonna
basement.
bury it, or you gonna leave it above ground?
I was thinking bury it out in the front lawn. Instead of putting oil tanks in the basement, because, you know, I'm just thinking before frost hits. If that's something that the board is looking to do, or is it gonna be a CIP project?
Well, CIP's done, but I can get a price, but I think you're gonna have to involve, I'll have to ask Chip, isn't there involvement with
Well, the fire department too
safety,
is
yes, or something to bury a tank?
not a propane tank. No, because they're made for direct burial.
Right.
Mm.
Okay.
It's oil tanks that you have to contain underground containment.
I just don't want one day, you know, to sneak up on us and next thing you know, there's a hole in the tank that we know where it is, type thing. I really don't want that to sneak up on us, and next thing you know, we get the whole parking lot dug up. And the Viro trailer's kicking around. So, that would not be on the list.
So you're
of
looking at
things.
propane?
Yes, that was my thought.
It'll go in conjunction with everything else we got
And-
done.
And what about
Right.
What
the,
about the furnace?
the furnace, has that been looked at? Yeah,
But you
I
said
thought
that
you,
thing's almost 30 years old.
I thought they revamped that about 10 years or so ago. I thought they went right I don't know if they replaced it or went through it, I don't know.
They
You'd
go
have to look back.
Maybe, yeah, so maybe we get an
Jennifer
email on.
Bowles was here in 2015. The furnace had a new burner and everything was replaced.
Yeah,
Who
that-
was here?
Jennifer Bowles.
Oh, Jennifer Bull. Jim Bull.
Was it here?
I don't think it was here.
No, it wasn't
I don't think
here.
it wasn't here.
Safety complex,
The
man.
complex, yeah,
yeah.
and the
And
library.
library.
The library.
Well, I know they did work here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, I'm just thinking
I
that
don't know.
propane would be, like I said, if that thing's got any age on it, I mean, I say age,
There's a
but
tag on it, tells you.
I'm
when
sure
it was
the
made.
manufacturer date's on there, yeah.
There is. Snapped on.
Ricky, a question I have for you, is there, have you looked into any incentives that they're gonna give you for switching from over to propane? Because if you look in this magazine called Green Energy
That's
Times,
fine, Tim. I'm just gonna say that we don't have public comment right now,
I'm sorry,
so. Directed towards Naomi,
yeah.
that idea, so. Alright, and that was all I had on the government building,
Okay.
just those.
That's it.
Is that rest of the report?
And the other one. We'll move to the, tax deed property, Ted. Finalize you did. ACO, Sean talked about that earlier. We're gonna try a third time to advertise for that. Deliberative session, you know, has been confirmed. Lawn care contracts, I fixed. I'll put it out to the newspaper tomorrow to be put out to bid. The tax rate study you did, I'm bouncing around, sorry. 2019 schedule, you have DPW next week. Also, just to, you have a public hearing
Next week?
next week for the increasing of disposal fees at the transfer station to make up for the shortfall in the revolving fund. Public hearing,
Oh my God, normal week,
what's that?
normal week.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Can, I guess I gotta, it bears the question. Are you all done?
I need non-public at the end, which I think Sean's hanging around for.
Yep. That's it?
Oh, and then,
I ain't
I
signed
have
anything
some
else.
correspondence. No, I
Okay,
have some correspondence.
okay.
When you get to that.
Well, weren't we also going to do the janitorial position and the code enforcement officer?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I got 2 today from Stratum, because somebody else is circulating them around.
What's that?
Okay,
Meaning, there's somebody was looking for a handyman / so Stratum forwarded his, I'm waiting to see who else forwards theirs,
okay.
just because he has a full-time and a part-time person, so. So that's why I wasn't ignoring it, I just didn't have anything more other than what I've seen bounced around.
Well, Jim?
I think that needs to go into
Oh.
non-public. Okay,
Any,
go ahead.
I will ask that we look into, there was a point struck by, one of our public commenters tonight about this RSA 4013.
Yeah, I wrote it
Rule
down.
9. I'd really like to look into that and get that legally weighed upon. As far as what we're gonna be up against.
The whole state's up against it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, but I
right.
just wanna know where.
Exactly,
Where
yeah.
everybody's at with it, because again, I don't, excuse me, I really wanna go into the first session with knowledge of that. And I don't wanna say be on the defense, because that's not where we wanna be, but at least be able to,
Have-
justify what we've got going on here, and be able to say, hey, unless everything comes in front of you as a warrant article for every contract we make, we gotta be able to conduct business. And I'm not,
And that's how,
Right.
I totally get it on new ones.
yep.
There's no determination. If you've got a contract now and you need to renew it, I don't understand why you have to stop everything and go to town meeting with it when it's a renewal.
Right.
Totally
So-
new one, I
think
totally
that's.
get.
So I think we really need
But
to
at the
have,
same time, everybody in every town is fighting the same thing because it's as clear as,
mud.
mud, but they also, it couldn't have been very clear before if we've monkeyed with it again.
Right.
Mm.
So I guess, and maybe even reach further than our legal counsel and go and see if she knows of anybody that is really in you know, with their feet, other than, you
Well,
know,
I've been reached by other towns to see what we're doing. Everybody's
Or
bouncing it around.
NHMA doesn't have any more answers, and they deal with it every day.
love
So,
them.
They're waiting
That's what I
for,
wanna get at.
they're waiting for the appeal.
this stuff before the courts, that's what they're waiting for. Hopefully, we'll have
An answer
an
before
answer.
March, I doubt it, but.
But you know what, I don't honestly know what drove it, other than and you can tell me to be quiet if you want. It was personal, because there was a couple things that were in there that had already been approved in 15.
Oh, absolutely. No.
But at the same time, years ago, I'll take my position, pick on myself. Years ago, when my predecessor was here, they offered him a lot more money.
Mhm.
Midstream, they signed him on in June. And in January, proposed in default were exactly what his contract was, no questions asked.
Right.
And we've done that right along.
Mhm.
And now, all of a sudden,
And even now, it's
you
still,
know,
it's still pick and
it's
choose.
still picking and choosing a couple
No,
of our
I agree.
employees.
Yeah.
And I totally get it, I totally understand it, but I wish everybody would understand how we've arrived's not a good word, arrived at where we are today.
Right.
It's easy to speculate how we got there, but without having a fact, in what we used to do in the past.
Mhm.
You know, like I said,
Well, I mean, if you have-
when I first started out, you guys cut my pay, not you guys. I was offered $15,000 less, and they put $15,000 on both sides.
Mhm.
And now it's different when it goes the other direction. See, there's no consistency, and that's what I have a hard time with.
Right. No, I agree.
If we
But-
could be consistent, but is it service, is it employment? I don't know.
Right.
You know?
But again, and that's kind of why I want the best clarification that we can get
No,
on
I mean,
that.
there's a lot of people, I think, if you ask Peter how they're handling it,
Mhm.
you know, when he was here earlier, they're struggling because in years past, they've actually given raises in the default budget. They just gave somebody a huge raise and found it in the default budget because doing an area survey found she was grossly underpaid.
Mhm.
And they just found it in the budget and did it.
Hmm.
It didn't go anywhere. She's not contracted, but still.
How did they come to that?
How do you
Yeah.
come up
How
with
do you come
things
up with
like
that?
that?
Right. Right. Okay. That's fine. I just want.
Yeah, no, I'll find out, because I
Okay.
think it's gonna, you know, it's
We've
gonna be
gotta do-
discussed.
It's gotta be a big
Something.
discussion, I
It's gonna
think.
be an awful
It's gotta be a big discussion.
Yeah.
We're gonna-
Maybe they'll do it at the conference,
That'd be nice.
the NHMA
Yeah,
conference.
see, but
That's
NHMA's
They don't know.
have the
They
answer.
don't have the answer.
Yeah.
No, I know they're advisory, but usually they have pretty,
Yeah,
Oh,
but
they're shaking their head too.
because they don't know which way to go, they're waiting for the court to decide. That's
Well, they're waiting on us.
on us. It's our court case.
You're
That's
for the,
what we're
you're for the
waiting for.
spearheads. Okay. All set. Administrative report.
I just have like.
Correspondence?
Well, go ahead.
I think we got something from Travis
Cochran.
Cochran. Is that,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's in my file.
That, I can tell you, that was brought up before the planning board the other night, and it didn't go anywhere because it's also been brought before town council. So the enforcement officers brought it before town council. So at that point, it was a moot point at the planning
And
board.
there's been a decision, there's been a
Legal
letter
decision.
written back to
Travis.
the resident indicating that the setback cited in 3.5 are 30 and 15 does apply not to only a house, but any structure, outbuilding, or septic system that's constructed on an undersized lot.
Non-conforming lot.
So it's his understanding the intent of the article is to reduce setbacks on pre-existing non-conforming lots as to not deprive an owner from constructing permitted accessory structures.
Does this person not have much land?
It's 1.6.
Yeah. So that's not conforming.
And it's not really great terrain.
It's the one
Right
just below you, isn't it?
Yeah, on the opposite side.
Yeah.
And then it just
It
says
drops
if you feel
drops off drastically on the downhill
Yeah.
It
side.
says if you feel the interpretation is not right, he can appeal it to the zoning board.
oh, okay.
So that's the avenue, but
Okay.
he did get responded
Yep.
to.
Okay.
Mm.
Yep. I sent you a resignation from the library trustee gentleman. I'll just send him back something from us,
Yeah.
you know, thanking him. I think he
Yes.
had
He's been on there
run,
for quite a while.
he'd run one of the year, he just reran.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
just,
Leonard.
I'll send him a thank you.
Absolutely.
You all got the email regarding 33 B&B Lane. I haven't studied it, it's
Yeah.
this thick.
Yeah.
I'd like a copy
Still
of
reading
it.
it.
Can we get a hard copy of it? Because all I got was
Yeah,
a
I'd
letter
like
in
it
the
too, yeah.
mail, a thin.
Yeah, I know Maureen had made copies so
Yeah, if
people
you
could, but I think, yeah, we can make you
All
copies.
in
Yeah, I'd
that
like one.
email, but it was forever to,
Yeah, I can't, I
I have
hate
no
sitting
idea
there
the
reading it.
determination.
I'd rather have a piece of paper,
yeah.
you know, I
It's
get,
okay.
I just know that it was approved with conditions.
And can I just raise, it was talked about tonight in regards to the public hearing on the fees. I'll look back, but I recall them doing it here, and the board at the time said, you guys want to do that, that's up to you guys to make that
Well, that's
decision."
just it, and you know,
I just...
I think that's up to the Board of Fire Wards to do that. I really do, because, you know,
Oh.
RSA 154
Yeah.
covers that.
Oh, I believe the Board of Fire Wards could do it, but I think it should have been here. So
Well-
that it could have been televised and could have been,
yeah.
You know,
Well,
they have their meetings, their regular meetings on a Monday night.
But I
anyway.
think-
So
I
it
know,
wasn't
they
like
could
they
have
were
left here and gone back.
Yeah.
You know, I do recall that conversation when we did
Oh, I
this
don't.
last year. The last time we did this.
Yeah,
There
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago,
criticism
wasn't
as to
there?
why are you here?
I was,
You guys can set your own fees, have your public hearing. So they followed what they were told the last time they
Right.
were here, that's all.
Right. And that was a good number of years ago.
It was.
5 or 6.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
At least,
Yeah, we were on the board then, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I do
We
remember
came
coming over
over
here.
here and they said, guess what?
Yeah.
Go back over there.
Right, so I think that's that whole, you know, unknown between one board to another,
Yeah,
and their responsibilities.
true. And I think I put one of these in each email
Yep.
boxes. We usually
Yep.
put these in for
Oh.
the second half tax bills.
Yep.
The tax collector asked if you wanted
The
to do that
abatements.
again. My only preference is as long as it's only in the Weare resident ones.
Yeah.
Because we end up, others think they can have the elderly exemption or other things that only have seasonal ones here and they can't. So if you guys are okay with it, I'll just make sure, Wendy, that that these, I don't think they've changed any of the limitations as far as like income and assets on some of the disabled and the elderly. And if those are okay, you're okay with putting it in the second one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the caveat
I mean-
that we get a stamp for my signature.
Oh, no, you don't have to sign it.
All the exemptions when they come in?
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah, like I said.
just practice a little bit,
Yeah.
it'll be okay.
yeah. Let's stop fussing.
What's the matter, bending wrenches is too hard for you during the day, you can't write? or-
Hey, I run a keyboard during the day, all right?
And that's actually all I had on
Good.
in the non-public.
Okay.
Right.
So yours and yours are not related, correct?
We may be.
Oh, good.
That's good.
That
That
sounds
sounds even
Well,
better.
well,
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll find out when we get there. Right.
The abatements one, though, does refer to other people.
Yeah,
But you have to be living here. You can't,
Be a
if
summer
you-
home.
If you have a summer home here.
That
it
doesn't count.
It doesn't
Yeah.
count. You have to have it as your
we went through
residence.
that last time,
Right.
so,
Has to be your
For an
residence.
abatement?
yeah.
Primary residence.
Primary residence.
Primary residence that you get that abatement.
You
Not
vote.
the abatement, the exemption.
Exemption.
Yeah, well, Elizabeth, what I'm saying is abatements are on here.
Well, anybody can get an abatement. if you
Right,
pay
I
your own
understand
tax.
Yeah.
that, that's why.
No,
I
no, the
looked at-
limitations on what I was talking about is the limitations.
That was Betty.
The limitations, don't lose that elastic.
Yes, ma'am.
Boy, you're awful formal tonight, chief.
The abatements are any property owner, but the elderly
Right.
exemptions and blind exemptions, I wanna make sure that the access limits are there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the exemptions, not so much the
but they would only go into the town residents, that's
Yeah,
what you're
and
saying.
that's-
It's- I mean,
right, because the last time we put them in, everybody's, they all wanted to apply for
Everything else.
everything
Yeah,
else. And I know the abatement part is described on there, but I
Okay.
believe it's on our TAC website as well.
I don't have a problem with that, thing I do.
Oh, sorry.
What do we do?
Leave the door open.
Leaving it open, because we're still in public session.
And we're still public here for another few.
We haven't voted to go on.
Yeah, so that's the only, it just created a lot of hassle with the second homeowners.
Yeah.
All set?
Oh.
All right, I'll move to go on, are you guys all set? Correspondence or anything else? No?
Yeah.
All right, move to go on non-public under RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2, A and C. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We gonna adjourn after?
We're going to adjourn after this, potentially